unmute. Okay. That Parshas Bereshit starts off really strong, but then, like on the, at the end, there's not such great things that happen, and then Parshas Noach starts off sort of like it's like negative, basically, like the mabul, the door, the problems, even the haflaga, but then like Avram Avinu is at the end, so it's like and Lech Lecha is what they call the first holy happy, like joyful, whatever, good, positive parsha.
Which is interesting because the end of Bereshit is Noach Matzachim B'nei Hashem.
Right,
so but it's already like a little bit of tikva that after whatever's happening in Bereshit, there's like a light behind the tunnel.
Right, but it's like a mixture of it's das ra v'tov, right, tov v'ra. So Lech Lecha is like the beginning of our story, personally, as Am Yisrael. Okay, so we're going to learn something today, Bezrat Hashem, that will give us a lot of chizuk and a lot of maybe understanding and ways of like having kavana in these days. Okay, so I have the sources that you're going to need on the sheet. I took off and put things back on, like as I was trying to figure out what how I wanted to lechaven this year today. So I hope everything that I meant to be on here is on here, but I apologize if it's not. Oh yeah, please, absolutely. Does everybody else have? Okay. So the first pasuk that we're going to do is from after, right? Avram Avinu participated in this battle, this war between the 4 kings and the 5 kings, right? And there was like a he apparently expressed. I mean, we always only know what the pasuk says to us, right? So, but Torah Sheba'al Peh, we kind of hear like the background between the lines and Al Pi Masorah, right? That Avram Avinu was essentially like, you know what? Let's actually just read the pasuk. Okay, Achar Dvarim Ha'eleh Haya Dvar Hashem El Avram. Okay, so after this whole war between the 4 kings and the 5 kings that Avram participated in, right? But we don't call him Avram, we call him Avraham. But that's what the pasuk says, right? Hashem spoke to him, and he said, "B'machazeh, in a vision, lay more. Al tira Avram, anochi magen lach scharcha harbe me'od." Okay, and he said, "Don't be afraid, Avram. I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great." So Rashi says, "Achar dvarim ha'eleh, achar shenaseh lo nes zeh." Right? Hashem did a miracle for Avram. That he won the war. They won the war. His side won the war. Okay, but Rashi spells it out for us. Shaharag es hamalachim v'haya doeg ve'omer. Okay, so he killed these kings and he was worried and he said, Shema kibalti sachar al kol tzidkotai. Okay, like aren't I getting reward on my tzidkus? Right? Like this doesn't feel like tzidkus. Lekach amar lo hamakom al tira Avram anochi magen lach. No, and Hashem says to him, no, don't worry, Avram. I'm protecting you. I'm shielding you. I'm still, protecting you. Min ha'onesh shelo ta'anesh al kol otan nefashos sharagta. Okay, that like seemingly in the natural world, right? That killing is not what we do, right? I mean. The mitzvah is actually thou shalt not murder. So that's something that gets confused by the world, right? They say that thou shalt not kill. That's an incorrect translation, right? The tzivui is not to murder. There's a big difference between murdering and killing, right? We know that self-defense, for example, is a killing that is obviously everything takes a toll on a person, but that's a righteous that is like tzedek, right? You can't allow someone to kill you. You have to kill them in order to stop them from killing you. So Hashem says to Avraham, I will protect you from the punishment that should have might have befallen or could have befallen you for this war that you participated in, right? It was, all wars are bloody, and this was no exception, especially back in those days. And it was very, very physical, very what's the word? just flew out of my head with a V, like visceral. Thank you very much. Like very visceral, very like, mamashi. And Avram Avinu participated in it. And it like was totally against his nature to do that. Okay, so let's read the Sfas Emes, because before I'm like, I have it in my head already, so I'm gonna like start talking about it, and better for us to just dive in and learn it. Okay, so Sfas Emes was the second Ger Rebbe. He was the grandson of the first Ger Rebbe, but he was the surviving heir, essentially. Okay. Kihine Avram Avinu alav shalom haya shoresh hachesed. Right? Avram's mida is chesed. We always talk about that. We always learn about that, right? That and chesed, how are we going to translate chesed? Okay, let's call it loving kindness. Okay, loving kindness. Okay, that's how we're going to translate it. For now, we're going to leave it like that. We're not going to discuss it so much. We're going to leave it like that. We're just going to translate it, loving kindness. Okay, but Avram Avinu is the shoresh of he was like the pathway, the doorway for chesed to come into this world. Okay, through him, he embodied chesed and he passed on to us chesed. Okay, we know that the avos, right? Siman avos, Maase avos siman labanim, right? That when we learn about the avos, it's very, very important to remember that we're not just learning about like people who lived a long time ago and isn't this a nice story, right? We call them avos because just like each one of us on a personal level has character traits from our parents, right? So all of us as Am Yisrael, as Jews, have character traits from our parents, from our avos, right? When we learn about Avram Avinu and his midos, we're not learning about someone else's midos. We're learning about our inheritance, our spiritual inheritance. Okay, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, this is our spiritual DNA. So when we learn about the avos, it's like, it's everything about them is applicable to us in on our own level. But there's no story, there's no Misa that they did that doesn't still affect us today. Okay, so that's what Chassidus brings down. That's the difference. That's like one of the big, shifts in paradigm shift with Chassidus is that Torah is not something that happened a long time ago. Torah is happening right now. So we're still receiving this midah from Avram Avinu, on a daily basis as his spiritual heirs.
So that would make sense. I didn't like that. That would make sense because it would mean that he would be afraid that together with the chesed that would be passed on.
So let's before you ask that question, I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but okay. I want to learn. This is what the Sfas Emes is going to tell us, okay? And that's why I'm cutting you off a little bit, okay? So after we learn the Sfas Emes, then we can come back to your questions. Okay. So he's shoresh hachesed. שהחסד מתגלגל בעולם בשבילו, כמו שכתוב במדרש פרשת Chayetzar. Okay, the Midrash in Bereshis Rabbah says literally that chesed comes into the world through and by Avram Avinu, and because of Avram Avinu. That he literally was the road builder of chesed. Okay, we call him like he like was like hacking out a pathway of life. And that his pathway was chesed. Ubekan hereg gevura gedola behaka kol ela hamalachim. Okay, so here in this war though, it seems like he's expressing not chesed but gevura, right? Because that's the midah of that seems to be, on a pashut level, the midah of war, right? You have to be a gibor. You have to use gevura in order to, kill these kings. לכן יתיירא פן ירד ממדרגתו להיות נעשה על ידו דין כזה. So he was worried, Avram Avinu was worried that he had fallen from his level in order to have done this deed, right? And therefore, his whole sort of like inyan in the world was going to fall away, right? Like when a person does something that is so opposite everything else that they do in this world, it feels like a breaking down of like their essential self. And that's what Avram Avinu was worried about. He's like, wait, but
negating.
Yeah, negating, exactly. Everything I've stood for, everything I've worked for. He wasn't a young man, right? He had lived a long time and he spent his entire life cultivating this midah of chesed. And now all of a sudden, he participated in this battle and he killed these kings that doesn't feel like chesed to him. Okay. Yeah. He was. Yeah. I see Hindi walking in, so I'm just handing you a page for Hindi. Yeah. Okay. Achen be'emet ze atzmo haya birur midato. Okay, but what we understand now is that this was what we call a birur. Okay, a birur means a clarification, a purification. Okay, it was a, sometimes when we don't understand something, we ask questions, and that's a birur. We're trying to. He's doing a cheshbon nefesh, but what this sentence of the Sas Emes is saying is that action was actually a birur of his midah. Okay, let's see why. Ki hachesed be'ahava tzarich shmira shelo yitpashet yoter midai. Okay, that chesed and ahava actually need shmira. They need. So when we say chesed, loving kindness, okay. So this is why I don't want to translate it just as kindness, because that can direct us to a misunderstanding. Okay, when a parent pulls their child very strongly out of the road as a car is coming, right? What would you describe? What would you call that? Loving kindness. That's exactly right. Is it and not? I wouldn't say kindness, right? Because that has the wrong flavor. Okay, meaning, the child might have a bruise on them from the parent grabbing them so hard out of the road. But of course, obviously, it's, to prevent a bigger disaster from happening. And therefore, that's called chesed. That's loving kindness. Okay, it's not being expressed in the normal, like, I hug you, I kiss you, I pat you on the head. But it is no less loving kindness than that, and in a way, it's even more, right? Okay, so but chesed and ahava need shmira. So, like, the example that's always given is a river. Okay, a river, like we talk about the Nile River in Egypt. Fine, you can use that as an example. I don't want to get into the whole thing, whatever. But like, the idea of a river is that it has banks. And the banks of the river guide it to flow in a certain way, right? If the river didn't have banks, it would overflow, right? So again, like in certain places, they understand that, they overflow, okay? But until they knew how to use that, right? So then it was a negative thing. Or the Mabul, right? Okay, it says about the Mabul, Mei Noach, right? It started out as gentle waters, right? But then it became a Mabul. What happens to rain what happens when we receive rain in the wrong time or too much, right? So even though rain is, has that element of chesed, obviously we need rain to survive, right? But at the same time, too much is chesed without borders, without boundaries. And then it isn't called chesed anymore, or it's a corrupted form of chesed. The example that's given in the Gemara, what's called chesed or corrupted chesed is incest, right? Because and that's like a very stark example, right? A love between a brother and a sister that goes awry becomes something corrupted. So we see ahava needs shmira. It needs boundaries. It needs borders.
Why does he say shmira and not gvura?
He'll say that also, but because you need to watch it so that it doesn't become right. Yeah. Oh, maybe. Interesting. Okay, let's see. He brings an example from the Chidushei Harim. Okay, so it's Kamosha Katuv, Mori Vizikani, Zecher Libracha, Zecher Tzadik Libracha, Perush. Okay, he says about the pasuk. Now I have this pasuk for you on Shira Shirim. Okay, Ma Yafu. It's right underneath in source number 4. Okay, it's from Shira Shirim. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's a song. Okay, great. Ma Yafu Pa'amayich Banalim Bas Nadiv. Right? How lovely are your feet in sandals, oh daughters of nobles. Obviously, Shira Shirim is very, very challenging to translate. Okay, but okay, and we're not even going to do the rest of the pasuk because it's not relevant. What's happening in my house? Interesting, though. It is interesting. But the first part of the pasuk is what is what the Chidushei Arim says. And he says, Shahanedivut tzarich man'al. Okay, or min'al, right?
Like a
lock, right? Man'ul, exactly. Okay, so nidivut, like giving, okay, volunteering, generosity, right? Needs a lock. It needs boundaries, right? We can think of that, right? A person that gives, a mother, even, let's say, right, who's just constantly giving with no boundaries. So then that's a problem, right? A, she has nothing left for herself. B, her children end up, maybe becoming spoiled or taking from her in an unhealthy manner, right? We have all kinds of things. We all understand this. This is like an instinctual thing, right? We have to have boundaries. We have to have healthy boundaries, okay? But he's saying here that it needs, so nidivut tzarich manal, but the way it's translated is a sandal, okay? Meaning when our feet go into sandals, and that provides them with like a gvul, a shmirah, so that they don't get hurt by the rocks of the ground. That's like the idea here, right? That if we walk around barefoot, so then we get cut and bruised and whatever. And so we have sandals, we have shoes that provide our feet with this protection, with this healthy boundary. Okay. The other thing that I'll leave for that. Okay, chulu. Okay, but ken katuv. Okay, besefer Torah or me'arav befi anochi magen lecha ayen sham. Okay, so that is actually a reference to the Alter Rebbe's Torah or, which is what we're going to learn next. Okay, so put that sentence aside for now. That's on the bottom of your page. Okay, we're going to ayen sham. Okay, in 1 minute. V'zeh she'amar lo hakadosh baruch hu ki me'ito haya zeh כדי שיהיה נשמר מידתו ומתברר שלא יוכל לסבול הרשעים. Okay, we're going to stop there for a second. Okay, and so Hashem says to him, this actually came from you. Okay, meaning the war it came from you, means it is in line with your chesed. Yeah. It is totally in line with your chesed, which is obviously today's war. Okay, it's mamash the parallels. I'm sure everyone's going to be learning this piece of Sfas Emes this week because it's so parallel, right? Like this is something that Am Yisrael do not engage in war stam for the sake of war, right? We only engage in war for the sake of defending our borders and our people. That's how we engage in war. That's the intention behind our wars. Our army is a defensive army always, right? This idea that like the psak on like why people are allowed to carry guns on Shabbos, right? I think it was from Rav Moshe Feinstein, was that a gun is of course muktzah, right? But on the other hand, because it's a kli of, it can be defined as a kli of destruction. But in our case, it's actually a kli of saving a life. And saving a life is break Shabbos, right? Sorry. Oh my gosh, I don't know what is, my brain is like mamash, like I'm trying to get it in order, but it's not quite functioning. Thank you. This is teamwork. It's pikuach nefesh, right? A person that has a gun, and what Rav Moshe Feinstein said was the person that's carrying the gun doesn't want to be using it. Like the last thing they want to do is use the gun. They will only use it if they have to use it. They're not using it, and they're not using it as an aggressor. They're using it as a protector. And therefore, that's why the men or the women who carry guns are dafka supposed to carry them on Shabbos, because it's a matter of pikuach nefesh in our situation. So that's exactly what Hashem is saying to Avram Avinu. Okay, this war came from you. These actions were from you, and they are in line with your midah of chesed. Okay, but it had to go through this birur, meaning, okay, so let's keep on reading. Shelo yuchal lizbol harishayim. We cannot tolerate reshus. We cannot tolerate evil. Ke'inyan shematzinu hamarachem al ahzarim. Right, like we see that it says, right, anyone who has compassion or any compassion shown to evil, to aggressors, okay, Sofo liod achzar, right? So then it only causes damage. It's not mercy when it's being shown to the wrong place. It's not mercy when it's allowing evil to spread. That is not called mercy, right? And Am Yisrael, we a little bit have a problem with this, right? We have all kinds of laws that, seemingly on the surface, they seem to be based in, morality and in ethics of like, healing bringing the terrorists to the hospital and healing them. And look, I'm not a posek, right? But there's something wrong. There's something wrong with that situation. On one hand, we're tapping into the the Hippocratic Oath. When Jewish doctors become doctors, if they're from, they don't swear the Hippocratic Oath. First of all, we don't swear, okay, but fine. But they do it on the Rambam, okay? The Rambam's tefillah essentially as a doctor, okay? That we say like I should put my energies where they are necessary and where they will bring more good into this world, right? A doctor working to save the life of a murderer, a serial killer, a terrorist, a slaughterer is an energy that is being misdirected.
But can I say another thing with that? I think, like I keep telling everybody in America, we should do this, we should do that. I said, you know what? I really hope that in the world that there's no crisis that happens right now. Because whenever something happens, Israel's like the first one to get on their feet. It doesn't matter what country.
Right.
And we saw this recently in Turkey.
Right.
They had the earthquake.
Right.
Now we need them to go in there and do a chesed.
Right. I mean,
So we have to sometimes say to ourselves, where's our gvulot?
Right.
Like where do we
right.
pump our energy?
That's exactly right. So hopefully learning this Torah will help Am Yisrael. And I hope more people learn it, not just us, right? But even just us learning it is like drawing down this strength of appropriate and healthy chesed. Okay, והעניין הוא כמו שכתוב, ימינך השם נעדרי, ימינך השם תירץ. Okay, that's in Shmos. It's from the Song of the Sea. Okay, that right, your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the foe. Right. ואמרו חז"ל, כשבני ישראל זכאין השמאל נעשה ימין. That we like the right hand is generally always referred to as chesed. Okay. And the left hand is generally referred to as gevura. But here we see in Shirat Hayam that that same right hand, right, is saving us and shattering Mitzrayim, because that's actually both of those are chesed, right? To save a good person and to kill an evil person is both chesed. That's both of those are versions of chesed. They look very different, but they are both versions of chesed and both necessary. And they are the two sides that make up chesed. Okay. And so it says about us that we should make the left right, meaning that we should have that intention. We should know that that's the intention, that even when we're doing gevura, it's actually chesed, right? That, I mean, look, we should all be zochet to make the right choices and to, have this as the intention and to be using our gevura and our chesed, in the right way, obviously, okay? There are unhealthy people out there who are using it in the wrong way, right? So this is a tefillah. We should have the right state of mind to be able to do the things that need to be done and know that we're doing them, that for the right reasons. Exactly, okay? It might look like gevura, but it's really chesed. But we should have the clarity of mind to know how to use our gevura shebachesed. Right?
You should be on the front line.
I am on the front lines here with you ladies. Okay, and that's why the Torah tells us, that's why Hashem says to Abraham, I am magen, I shield you, right? I am protecting you. Shakadosh Baruch Hu shomer oto ve'et midato liyot alav magen. Okay, that Hashem is guarding this midah and directing it in the right way, that it should be a magen. L'tzamtem u'le'atzor.
Which is very interesting. What's a magen? Magen is a shield.
Shield.
We're talking about a war.
Right. 1,000%. Exactly. That's why, right? I took out the piece that the Kedushas Levi talks about how what's the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, right? Magen Abraham. Okay. So every day when we say that 3 times a day, right? Or at least once a day, then we should have this thought in mind. Okay, and we're going to learn even more about this from the Torah or from the Alter Rebbe, that's what we're asking for. Okay, and the Kedushas Levi says, why do we, the Midrash actually says, right? Why we're talking about Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov? That's Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferet, right? So why don't we end? It seems like the normal thing. Avraham is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvura, and Yaakov is Tiferet. Okay, so Tiferet is like this nice balance between Gvura and Chesed. Why don't we say right? So why don't we end the bracha with Magen Yaakov? Why don't we end the bracha with Tiferes? Because it says that it's Hakol Echad, Hakol Echad. Everything goes back to Chesed. It looks maybe like Gevura, but it's actually Chesed when it's used in the right direction, right? When we tap into it in the right way. So we have to go back to the Chosem is Avram Avinu, because he was the first, and he brought this into the world, and it needs to be, it needs to be clarified, it needs to be purified, it needs to be worked on constantly, right? We constantly have to ask ourselves, am I doing this with the right intentions? Is this the right thing to do? With that inyan in mind. Not is this the right thing to do according to the rest of the world, but is this the right thing to do according to Torah, according to Hashem, right? That's what we need to ask ourselves. The rest of the world is confused. We'll put it lightly, okay? Okay, we're gonna, so to litzamtem means to, right, to minimize. But I want to say like it's like to weed out all the unnecessary aspects of it, right? To condense, right? To make it more potent. Yes, that's beautiful. Okay, to prune anything that's not necessary for that. Okay, okay, so now we're going to learn the Torah or, because that v'la'atzor hamida, that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to talk about. Okay, to stop the mida. So we're going to learn that it's still the same idea, but we're going to take it even deeper. As we saw, the Sasam has quoted the Alter Rebbe, where he says ayen sham. Okay, so now we're going to ayen sham in the Torah or. Okay, I'm going to use the book because it has vowels, and just for me to read it out loud, it'll be more clear if I have all the vowels in front of me. Okay, Anochi magen lach. Okay, same pasuk. Right? I'm in the Torah or, number 6. Torah or. Okay, Torah or is from the Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement. His picture is right up there on the wall, so we have him shmirah from him looking down on us with his beautiful kind eyes. Okay, Perush Magen Avraham. Okay, so we're going to explain how this becomes Magen Avraham. Right? Hashem promises to Magen. Okay, and like Becky just said, right? This is so appropriate for right now. It's the shield. I wanted my daughter is an amazing graphic artist, but she, due to the tzimtzum of her parents, she doesn't have all the tools that she possibly could use because they're very expensive, but someday she will. And I wanted her to make a comic strip, like a graphic illustration, right? Not a comic, but like a graphic illustration with a few panels. The first panel I wanted it to be like, I really feel, I see this in my mind, that our words of Tehillim and Torah are like going up and forming a shield over Am Yisrael. And so I wanted her to like sort of be able to like tap into my brain and express that in graphic design. It's a work in progress because someone else can't be in your brain, and your words are always mitzamtem, right? It always limits how you can express yourself. But that's the image in my mind, right? That like our words of Torah are literally wrapping themselves around each individual chayal, each individual person who was taken hostage, and all of Am Yisrael, right? As like a shield. We should really envision that as we're learning Torah and as we're saying Tehillim. So it's so strong. It's so strong. Okay. Dihine nodasha Avraham hu bechinas chesed. Okay. So not just chesed, but chesed gadol. Ad me'od, bli shumonea. So Avraham Avinu, the original midah of chesed that he embodied was chesed with no gvulot, chesed with no boundaries, chesed with no monea, like we saw, breaks. Right? With no breaks, exactly. Okay. Like
you're talking, it's really funny. I mean, you think of Otep us. So now you're bringing everything in together, and it's all just there. You know, it's like you said, you have to just bring it all together. It's all there.
Right. Right. All the munachim that we use are like,
that we know that we really don't usually think about.
Right. Right. And somehow Hashem mistaderes the world that all of a sudden everything is appropriate to, Okay, we see how it has always been appropriate, but now we see it. Yeah. Okay, Vakulam, it's all a birur. It's all a birur. We have to know that it's all a birur. The sun on the text, I'm saying it just right. This is all birur. And there's no question at all that this is Hashem, forcing us to do what we need to do and forcing the world to be in a position of choosing sides. And there's no question that Hashem is always directing the world to where it needs to be. It's a painful process. Like I think we said last week, right? When you purify silver, right? So, it's melted. It's not so pleasant for the silver, but the impurities come to the surface, and that's how you get, that's how it gets purified. That's what happens, right?
That's how you get Am Yisrael.
That's how you get Am Yisrael. That's what Mitzrayim was. So, right. Okay. The kulam. Okay. So Avram was a midah of chesed without gulot. The kulam tovim be'enav. The hu rak tov. Right. He was like, everyone's good. Everything's good. Everything's, hakol. Yeah, but said right. Hakol tova. Kulam. Right. Exactly. Okay. But maybe in like a little bit of an unhealthy way. For example, the Alter Rebbe brings V'lachen Amar Lu Yishmael Yichye Lefanecha. Okay, and I have that pasuk for you on the back. It's from later on in Bereshis, right? When Hashem gives Avram Avinu the bracha of Yitzchak, okay? So Avraham actually says, "Vayomer Avraham El HaElokim Lu Yishmael Yichye Lefanecha." But I have Yishmael. Yishmael should live forever. Yishmael should be my heir. Yishmael should be my, right? Because he only saw good in Yishmael. He only saw the goodness in Yishmael.
Well, that's why Yitzchak became Din.
Right.
It was like
He was like a balance. Exactly. Okay. Sheperusho sheyichye ad lefanecha, that Yishmael should live forever. Yishmael should have like all the brachas, should be full of life. Shehu b'chinas ein sof b'li gvul. That's what Avram Avinu wanted. He loved him so much. All he saw was the goodness, and all he saw was, this is my son. I don't even know, he didn't even see him. Like he just saw whatever, only good, and that was his bracha. That was what he wanted for him. Right? We don't really want that for Ishmael anymore. Yes. Okay, that's like a little bit achzariut. Yes. Ve'af al pi shehu yodea mahu Yishmael, even though he did, underneath it all, he did know like what Yishmael was really up to and what he was really like. But he just couldn't control his midah of chesed. It was like overflowing without any boundaries. Right? Which is what we've been saying. Even though he still wanted all the brachas for Ishmael because he just, that's who he was. Right? He wanted him to have only good things happen to him and only goodness, and that he would live forever like that. Okay, so now this is actually a quote from the Shalah. Okay, Shnei Luchot Habrid, who the Alter Rebbe learned a lot from. Okay, the Shalah HaKodesh. So he says, right, that he brings down that, and I have that on your source sheet also, right, on source number 8. Okay, that there's a very strong statement here that let's just go to after the psik, after the comma. V'izkir et Yaakov yoter mishar ha'avot ki mitato hayta shlema. Right, that we're called Bnei Israel. Okay, Yaakov is considered like the perfect, the Av that we sort of we draw brachas through Yaakov more even than through the other. Even though we say Magen Avraham every time, but Yaakov is more like this birur. It's more he already represents like a balance, tiferet, right? So we that's why we're called Bnei Israel, because we attach ourselves more even to Yaakov on that level, because his mitato was shlema, means that all of his children were righteous. Okay, well he didn't have, right? Avraham, lo ke Avraham sheyatza mi bno Yishmael, right? The Esav ben Beno, right? So Avraham has has, I mean, Avram Avinu, right? So like, I'm not speaking these words. I would never say them unless the Shlach Kodesh said them first. Let me just explain that Avraham has Yishmael and Yitzchak, right? So we understand that one's from Hagar, fine, but there's still, it's like a blemish that came into the world through Avraham, okay? And then through Yishmael, and then Esav comes through Yitzchak. So that kind of also goes back to Avraham in a way. It's kind of like part of his I don't know, Yerusha, let's call it, right? His DNA. And then Veloke Yitzchak sheyatza mimenu Esav, right? And Yitzchak also has that same problem, okay? And Yaakov doesn't have that. He doesn't have that, okay? Even though we know that, Shimon and Levi did the whole thing with Shechem, but still there were like very positive things that are included in that, okay? And his all 12 of the Shvatim that's who we are, right? We're the 12, that's Am Yisrael, that's Bnei Yisrael. So he's called Mitato Shlema, that his bed is perfect because he didn't have someone who became an enemy of Am Yisrael that came out of him. Yeah, Hindi.
No, but also I think it's just that it's a work in progress. I mean,
yeah.
Avram came from where his father was, involved with the Avodah Zarah, and like
100%.
But the first shift, and it just as it progressively gets better, then eventually it got to Yaakov.
You're absolutely right. 1,000%. It's always this like funny balance between talking about our avos as real people versus talking about them as like paradigms, right? So you're absolutely right, and we have to remember that, right? On some level, Avram Avinu wasn't always Avram Avinu, right? He was a work in progress. He had to get there, and that's exactly what the Alter Rebbe is bringing down, right? So we don't throw him out the Chas v'shalom, right? He's Avram Avinu.
It's the purification.
But it's the purification. Yes.
Starting with him.
Exactly. And all of us, we're all individually and as a nation, right? On an individual level, each one of us has to go through this with our own midos, and on an am level, and on a generational level, right? There's all these different dimensions that constantly need to be purified. We are all works of progress. Okay, so aval be'emet ein. Okay, so now we're back in the Torah or. Okay, I'm gonna find it for you. Okay, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. After the period, it says aval. Okay. Aval be'emet ein mehara'ui ken. Okay, this is not how right. The whole first paragraph was like. Avram Avinu wanted Yishmael to yichyeh forever, okay? And so he said, so the Alter Rebbe says, this is not appropriate. This is not how it's supposed to be. Tihine bevias hamashiach im yirtza Hashem ksiv bila hamavet lanetzach. Okay, now I hope I'm not really confusing you with all the sources, but I have that source for you on the second page. Okay, it's number 9. Okay, it's from Yeshayahu. Okay, so in the times of Mashiach, it says, Bila hamavet lanetzach, death will be destroyed forever. Umacha Adonai Elohim, it's really Adonai Hashem, Adonai, okay, right? Dim'a me'al kol panim, and Hashem will wipe away the tears from all the faces. It's beautiful, right? V'cherpas amo yasir, and will put an end to the reproach of God's people. Me'al kol ha'aretz ki Hashem diber. From over all the earth, because these are the words of Hashem. This is what Hashem says is going to happen, okay? But this idea that death will be swallowed forever. Ve'es ruach hatuma avir min ha'aretz. That's another quote. It's from Zechariah. That's the next quote on your page. Okay, and this is a very familiar pasuk. Vaya bayom hahu neum Adonai tzvaos achris es shemos ha'atzabim min ha'aretz. In that day too, declares Hashem of hosts, right? The Hashem of the armies, right? That we talked about that, right? That's appropriate right now. I will erase the very names of the idols from the world, from the land. V'lo yizachru od v'gam es hanevi'im ve'es ruach hatuma avir min ha'aretz. And I shall also, right, the names of those, like all idol worship will not be spoken of anymore. We won't use, because words can also be idol worship, right? And I will also make the prophets and the impure spirit vanish from the land. That means like the impure prophets, okay? So he says that what the Alter Rebbe is quoting is the Ruach HaTuma, right? I'll take away the impure spirit from the land. Okay, let's go back into the Torah or. So again, we're at the end of the line underneath where we were before. It's Tzarich. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down, all the way at the end of that line. V'tzarich leva'er. Oh, it's tzarich leva'er, meaning to take away, right? Tzarich leva'er. Like biur chametz, exactly. Okay. Kol hara min haaretz, right? That's what Hashem's planning on doing when Mashiach comes. Okay. So on one hand, Hashem could do anything in 1 second, right? But that's Yitzias Mitzrayim. Hashem did that. That was a freebie. Okay. We did not earn that whatsoever. We know that, at Yitzias Mitzrayim, we were at the 49th level of Tuma, right? Hashem had to give us two mitzvahs, the Bris Milah and the Korban Pesach, just to, merit, like to have any kind of merit to be taken out of Mitzrayim. The way that works in Kabbalah is a whole complicated thing. But basically, when you own something, when you have a piece of it, then it's shayach to you, right? And if you don't have a piece of it, then it's not shayach to you. So Hashem could have freed us, but it wouldn't have been anything. We would have been out of Mitzrayim, but we wouldn't have gotten Mitzrayim out of us, right? If we didn't have those mitzvahs when we left Mitzrayim. So as it was, we saw what happened, exactly so that's exactly right. So meaning it was really all from Hashem. But now through the generations, that's been our work that we have to earn it. We have to earn Mashiach this time. Okay, and we have to do it. Don't tell us short. We haven't been doing such a great job, but Be'ezrat Hashem.
You know something? In 1909, we're finishing Yirmiyahu. And every time I read Yirmiyahu now, I think to myself, we're not any better.
Right. If you listen to, there's a Rabbi Eli Michel who lives in Efrat. He does these classes on Nevi'im, and he's amazing. He sees how he talks about like what time period that we're living in, the time period of Shoftim, essentially, right? Like that we had Yoshua, now we're in Shoftim, and Shoftim, as we know, is like a balagan. There's a constant cycle, right? So that's kind of like what the world feels like, right? Like we've had these major events in world history in the last 3 years alone, but like in the last, the world's getting faster and faster. It's speeding up. These world events are coming closer and closer and closer together. And
we're not getting anywhere. I remember.
No, we have to say no. We have to. We have to.
The same thing. After
1,000%.
Be different.
Right. And it wasn't. It wasn't. But we have to think to ourselves. This is what we have to think to ourselves, that we're all works in progress, and all of that was not in vain. And it got us to where we are now. And this is getting us to where we need to go. That like they're building blocks. They're building blocks. We can't think that we're not going anywhere. We can't. That's chas v'shalom, that would lead to despair. Okay, we have to know that our reaction right now is helping move the ball forward, helping move the ball down the field. We have to believe that. We have to tap into that. Not just we have to believe that. That is happening, but we have to understand that. We have to like internalize that. Okay, that and one of the things that in throughout history, it's been very like challenging to talk about Mashiach, because it could lead people to despair, because the trend has been or had, there are several times in history where when people talk about Mashiach, they predict a date by which Mashiach is going to come, and then lo and behold, the date comes and goes, and Mashiach didn't come, and then people fall into despair. So we can't do that. We're not playing those kinds of games. Okay, it's not an option, right? And so we're not doing that. We're saying we're definitely, the Rebbe said, okay, if the Rebbe didn't say it, then I wouldn't say it. But the Rebbe said, okay, that we are, and all of Chassidus says, we are in the Ikvased Mashiach. We are in the footsteps of Mashiach. There is no question that we are getting closer and closer and closer. And that's why the world is such a balagan, because we're getting closer and closer, because everything's getting, everything has to come out. It's this purification process, right? It all has to come out before we can merit Mashiach. And it's coming out more and more and more and more. All the, it's like when you first do a cleaning, right? And you think it looks clean, but it's not really clean. And then, did you ever use one of those like deep steam cleaners in your carpeting or in your couch, right? And it like sucks out things that have been in there for like 20 years, and you're like, wow, I've been sitting on that for 20 years. I had no idea how dirty it was, right? That's what's happening now. We're getting things that are like stuck in the depths of our kishkas, and that's what's coming out, and that's why it looks so bad, because when a wound when everything comes out of a wound, right, it looks pretty disgusting. but that's actually the healing process, right?
Can I tell you, when it comes to Abraham, even when you talk about that Ishmael, that found so much good in him. Like we're all saying, they were saying, like the world right now is just in such a shallow place. But Rabbi Nachman says, with a little bit of an ayin tova. And when he davens for the big stone, and he said one person good in it, that's what we have to be right now.
Right.
Like we have to like really tap into that we're all good, and that Hashem should really help us now.
Hashem should help.
What?
What world do you live in that everybody is good?
But you know what? Right now you see it. Because right now, when we weren't good 2 weeks ago, and so many people are doing good, it's our
She means Am Yisrael.
To find everybody that is.
Right, that's what. And you mean everybody? I mean, there are good people in the world. Right, she's talking about Am Yisrael. She's talking about Am Yisrael. Right, that's where you were. They were like, what? Right. No, she was talking about there are good people in the world also. There are good people in the world, but we have to rely, Am Yisrael is on a mission. And on a mission, the people who are given the mission have to do the mission. And anybody that helps us along the way, great. And anybody that hinders us along the way, get out of our way, because we have a mission to do. Okay, ve'im v'tzarich leva'er. Okay, so we have to get rid of all the bad from the world, or the bad will have to be gotten rid of. Let's call it that. Okay, ve'im yitnaheg ha'olam b'chazdo hagadol kanal lo haya ha'olam yecholim lavo l'madrega hanal shel Mashiach. If the world was functioning at the level that Avraham Avinu was, kind of direct, the way he was functioning, that everything's good, hakol tova, right? Then we actually can't get to the level of meriting Mashiach, right? Because if you can't admit that there's a problem, then you can't fix the problem. Yes? Okay? When the problems come out, they're actually easier to fix than when they're like, bottled up inside, right? If we just say, if we watch someone, if we watch a kid hitting another kid and we say, kids, no, that's actually, that doesn't get anywhere. That's spinning our wheels. It's not, that's nice. That's like, okay, I have no opinion. I'm standing on the sidelines and I'm just gonna, but no, that's actually doesn't get the world to the place of Mashiach. We have to teach ourselves. We have to know right from wrong. We have to, we have to put boundaries on it.
Well, that was the whole idea why this prophet turned to Abram and he said,
right, because he couldn't do it. Exactly. Okay, lachen ba Yitzchak bechinas din. Okay, and that's why, like you said before, Becky, right? Yitzchak is born as a balance to Avram Avinu's chesed. Okay,
it's a balance. He's like on the other.
He's on the other extreme. Yaakov is the balance, right? But it's a weight. Let's say it's a weight on the other side of the scale. Okay, it's a counterbalance, right? Exactly. Meaning, right? It's meant to, right? When you have white and you have black, so then you have I don't know. That's bad. Whatever. But Din had to be brought into this world. Okay. Ve'af Yitzchak yatsa mimenu Esav michamat dino hakasheh. But Yitzchak also has this problem that he actually, was too much Din, and therefore Esav comes out of him, and that's Din with no gvul. Okay, there has to be gvul to Din also, and that's why Yaakov becomes this, Tiferet. He's the balance. Okay, but let's keep on going. Okay, what does it say about Esav? So this is a quote from Bereshis. Yeah. Okay, from the bracha. Yeah. That Yitzchak gives to Esav, right? You shall live by your sword. And you shall, we're not going to do the rest of the pasuk. We don't need to know that. But basically, by your sword you shall live. Okay, because that's Din.
I never understood that that's the bracha he gave.
Yeah. That we'll talk about that when we get to that part. Yaakov haytami tato shlema. But Yaakov, his bed was perfect. Okay, meaning he was this balance between chesed and Din. You can't have overwhelming chesed with no boundaries, and you can't have overwhelming Din with no lightening up of that. Okay, you just can't have those. We can't live in such extremes. We have to have this balance, and that's why Yaakov represents the balance and the mixture. It's really not a balance; it's the mixture of the two, because you have to have chesed with gvura, and you have to have gvura with chesed. Vehine noda ki magen nikra davar. Okay, so now he goes into a different a little bit of a different flavor, which is really, this is like my favorite piece, part of the whole piece. So like you said before, Becky, right? A magen is a shield, okay? It is something that covers up, okay? Mechaseh, right? Lemashal, b'milchama nikra magen, ma shemechaseh bo shelo yishlot alav hakeshet, right? You put a shield up and the arrow can't get to you, okay? Covers you and the arrow can't get to you. Okay, so now it says in Tehillim, Ki shemesh umagen Hashem Elokim. Okay, that's a pasuk from Pei Dalet, from Perek Pei Dalet in Tehillim 84. Okay, for Hashem, God is sun and shield. Okay, shekmosha Hashemesh im lo haya lo nartik lo haya yecholim lizbol oro hagadol. Okay, what do we say about the sun? Right? If it didn't have it, the Chazal teach us that the sun is in like a some kind of sheath, okay? That a sheath, yeah, exactly. Okay, like a sheath, right? Exactly. So I mean, we could call it like the ozone layer. Let's say, right? Like imagine, okay? So we're not looking directly at the sun when we're looking at directly at the sun, because it's covered by atmosphere. Okay, so the sun is in like a sheath. It's in a covering, because otherwise we wouldn't actually be able to handle it. We wouldn't be able to withstand the heat. The sun's in the covering. The sun's in the covering. Okay. Okay, so the nartek helps us to withstand the sun. I mean, we all know that, like, right? We've been outside on very, very hot days, right? Can you imagine? That's with the sheath. Right? Without the sheath, like we would burn up. Okay, like the story of the Rashbi when he came out of the cave, right? So he was like on such a high level. His Torah learning was on fire, but it was with this level of deen, and so everything he looked at that didn't like measure up to, he was like saw farmers in the field, and it was like he didn't understand how farmers could be possibly working in the field, and they says they burned up. There's a whole, discussion on what that really means, but basically nothing could handle that purity of heat, of intensity, let's call it. Okay. I actually just wrote a piece about, you'll see, I don't know if you saw, I wrote a piece in Torah Tidbits, like before Rosh Hashanah. So Bezrat Hashem, I have another piece coming out, and it's about Amuka, about Yonatan ben Uziel. So it says, I don't have this in the piece, so I feel free to share it, but it says in the Gemara that he was the most outstanding student of Hillel Zaken, and that a bird, this is what it says in the Gemara, if a bird flew overhead while he was learning Torah, the bird would burst into flame. And Rashi explains that the angels came from on high to listen to his Torah learning, and their energy was so intense that, like, if a bird flew in through the angels, they would burn up. And the Tosfos says that his learning created like a fire around him, a holy fire, and that's what the bird. So that's like the idea. Like we can't withstand that level of intensity. Okay.
That was like Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right, like Moshe Rabbeinu, exactly, because his karnot, not his horns, but his rays, right? Okay, okay, so it says that in the future, okay, Hashem is going to take the sun out of the sheath, and by this, the tzaddikim are going to enjoy that intensity. They're going to be able, just like Yonatan ben Uziel didn't burn up from his Torah learning, right? But the birds that flew overhead did, because they couldn't withstand it. So the tzaddikim are going to be healed. Actually, even it says by it, they're gonna enjoy it. It's gonna be pleasant for them, and the Rishaim are going to be burned up by it. Nidu nimba, they're going to be judged by it. Okay, so that's what that's the I think that's in the Midrash. V'hine noda shebechol boker da Avraham b'chinas chesed mitorer ba'olam. Okay, so every morning is symbolized by Avraham, right? Vayashkem Avraham baboker. Yes, Avraham is associated with morning. He woke up early in the morning. He davened shacharis, right? We connect Shacharis with Avram Avinu. So Avram is sort of representative of the morning, and that's also the midah that's aroused in the morning. Okay, morning is known as the hours of Chesed. That's why actually nowadays we say now in a Shas Chak we can say Tehillim anytime, but you're not really supposed to say Tehillim after dark because you're not supposed to say it after night. You can say it past midnight because from sunset until Chatzos is a time of Din, and so we're not actually supposed, like, it's kind of like traveling against the wind or traveling against traffic, right? It's not like you're not supposed to, but it just doesn't help as much as and it could be like diverted to the energy of Din rather than being, flowing with chesed. So we're supposed to really, it's best to say Tehillim in the morning, and from chatzos until, sunrise also is considered like times of chesed. So it's the morning is chesed. Okay, but Kadosh Baruch Hu. Well, Ashkenazim Hasidim say that you are that right. Hasidus says you're not supposed to, but in a time of necessity, like right now, 24/7, great. Right, and it's all good. It's all going to the help of the Okay, Kediita Zohar. Okay, one little last piece to bring it all together. Okay, like it says in the Zohar, that Abraham is Chesed and it's the morning. Okay, Kadosh Baruch Hu rotzeh lahanhig et haolam b'chinas Chesed. Hashem really wants to run the world through the attribute of Chesed. Im lo haya magen b'chinas Chesed hanal. לצמצם חסדו וטובו ולתת דרך צמצום כמו שצריך רק להחיות הקליפוס מפני שצריכים בשביל סטרת דקדוש. Okay, we're going to go into this whole thing. I'll just sort of paraphrase this part. Okay, he says that Hashem really wants to run the world through chesed, but chesed misappropriated goes to the wrong place. The same way that we said before, right? A parent who lets their child just like run wild, it gets misappropriated. It goes to the wrong place. And therefore, our chesed would actually enliven klipos. Klipos is the husks or shells, or it's anything that hides godliness. Okay, kind of like giving aid to, our enemies. Okay, which then comes back and bites us in our arm. Okay, Okay, part of our job in this world is to turn negative into positive. Okay, but if we do it in the wrong way, then we just basically give energy to the negative. If we're not doing it in the right way, we give energy to the wrong side. Ve'im lo haya derech tzimtzum haya chayosam bli gvul. And if we basically had chesed with no gvulot, then it would be impossible to, like we said before, it would be impossible to get rid of the bad from the world. Again, because you can't. There's two things here. A is you can't get rid of the problem if you don't admit that there's a problem, and B is if you're blind to it, then you end up giving energy to the problem. Right? We end up like strengthening the bully if we don't admit that there's a problem and stop the bullying. Okay, so every morning when the midah of Avraham, which is chesed, gets like aroused, so we say the bracha of Magen Avraham every morning in Shacharit.
We say that two more times. We say Mincha and
right, but we have to start the day with it. We have to start the day with it, okay? Megin sheyasem megin lebechinas Avraham, so that we help that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We help to litzamtem this midah of chesed, that it shouldn't go to the wrong place. It shouldn't be overflowing. It should be in the right measure. So literally, when we say that bracha in Shmona Esrei, so first of all, for each one of us, but also for the Am, and also for the world, and also for the generation, we are actually saying to Hashem, please help us to be in that midah in a healthy way. Help us have healthy, appropriate chesed. Help us to be shielded from the overflowing or misdirected chesed. That's what we're asking for. Isn't that amazing?
Which is interesting because that is the only bracha that you're supposed to have kavana for.
Isn't that it?
Which is really interesting.
There you go. Amazing.
Not the only bracha.
That's the most, it's like, that's like the ikar. It's the ikar, right? Exactly. So I'll give us all a bracha. When I learned, the first time I learned this, it changed my davening forever. And I literally always think of this as I'm making that bracha for, you know, about myself, about the people in my life, about our national situation, about the world, right? That as we make this bracha, and this is what I love so much about Chassidus, that we're actually activating that birur, that energy in the world as we say that bracha. So I'll give us all bracha that when we say this bracha, that we should have this in mind, because having it in mind, the awareness of it draws it down in an even stronger way. Bezrat Hashem, and we should see mamash results of that chesed in the right way with the gerulot, that our soldiers should be strengthened to do what needs to be done. Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you.
That last line was really right. Yeah, we had to get to the last line. That's why I was like running through it. Of course. I love you. I love that.